Back in the 70s, when they made Star Wars, they literally had cardboard, sellotape, and bits of plastic, and that film has endured and become, obviously, the hit that it is. And the reason is because if you want to do something with creative, you need to have boundaries. Hello, everyone. So first things first, I've noticed that everyone wears suit jackets when they do this. I always take mine off and roll my sleeves up because I think it's important that we take action on AI and automation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to read you something from an automation and AI book that I bought recently.
Christian, good.
It says, for many people, automation is a terrifying word. It conjures up visions of machines reducing man to the status of a mere pusher of buttons. So that's one slightly pessimistic view. And the other view is that automation is not the devil. It is no more than a tool, but a tool of such immense possibility that no one can yet see the full extent of what it might achieve for mankind. Now, that was a book I bought recently, but actually, that book was written in 1964. So the challenges that everyone is talking about now with automation and AI have been around for at least the last 60 years, and I don't think that's going to change soon. So I think we can all agree that AI has gone mad. Do we all think it's gone mad? We're kind of at that stage? I think so. So take a look at this.
A new AI agent that negotiates the hotel price. You can listen to this recording.
Hello, I am looking for a room for tonight for 2 people. May I ask if you have a room available?
Yes, we do.
I am the very model of an AI conversational. I process prompts, both trivial and quite informative. I'm trained on data plentiful, in knowledge I am plentiful. Though singing songs in public spaces might be quite adventural. How was that?
Okay, so it's gone mad, right? And AI, I'm going to use a pretty cliche phrase here, but basically they say that AI is like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about it, but no one's actually doing it. Now, we're doing it. Not the teenage sex, I should say, but the AI and the automation. Okay, so I suppose the first question is, why should you listen to me? Okay, everyone's an AI expert. Well, I have my feet in 2 camps. So I have an MSP. Different to what Soren said at the introduction this morning, apparently I'd sold my MSP. I did text my business partner, and I haven't, so that's good. So I do have an MSP. I've had it for the last 25 years. It's still going strong. We're UK-based. We have about 1,500 endpoints and growing. I have all the war wounds. I've kind of got the T-shirt, and I think I have a very unique insight into the psycho, or maybe psyche, of an MSP owner or someone that works at an MSP. And also, I like to be really clear. I think a lot of people say how wonderful everything is, but I'm pretty clear I've made every mistake in the book when it comes to running an MSP, so don't feel bad if you've made mistakes too. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started to look at our MSP and try to work out how we could be more efficient, how we could be better. And we started to automate a lot of what we were doing within the business. So I spent a couple of years really researching this world of automation that has actually been around for about 10 years in very large corporates. Something called RPA, which not many people have heard of. It's got very bad PR. And I started to kind of think there's maybe an opportunity here. So we started the business about 2.5 years ago. We're basically an automation and AI partner. We go from everything from education through to implementation, through to management, automation, AI, and data. And we've saved clients thousands and thousands of hours and pounds and euros. So let's get back to AI. Is it an empty promise? Everyone's talking about AI as the next big thing, but apart from Donald Trump videos and kind of Korean dictators skateboarding, the other big thing that it's given us is everyone's favorite, LinkedIn posts. When ChatGPT came out, all we started to see and still see now is LinkedIn posts that basically are packed full of emojis and look like they've been written by AI. And of course, everyone's other favorite, cats on the internet. So now we have realistic, photorealistic AI images of cats, because I think that's exactly what the internet needs more of, cats. So that's the kind of image stuff and the LinkedIn stuff. The other thing it does is a load of kind of pretty funky stuff as well. So I'll explain this. I mean, you can get it to do anything. So my wife is Brazilian. I don't speak any Portuguese. I don't know if anyone here is from Brazil. Anyone from Brazil? Ah, yeah, tudo bem. That's it. So I don't speak Portuguese. Her family don't speak English. So I wanted to record them a video that they could receive. So I recorded them this video.
Hello from England. This is a little video to say hello to everybody. Normally, you only hear me speaking in English, but today, like a miracle, I can speak in Portuguese.
So I ran it through a very clever AI thing, and as if by magic...
Olá da Inglaterra. Este é pequeno vídeo para cumprimentar e enviar saudações a todos. Normalmente você só me ouve falando em inglês, mas hoje, como verdadeiro...
I won't go on. You don't want to hear the messages that I was leaving my new family. But as far as I know, and the Brazilians can confirm, this is pretty accurate. This is kind of Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and pretty close. And it does the lip movement, it does the face movement, and everything. And the thing about all these things is they're amazing. The videos are amazing. This is amazing. All this stuff is crazy and amazing. But the real question is, how on earth is this going to help you as an MSP? And this is the challenge I think most businesses have. They see Meta, Gemini, ChatGPT, and we're all being told this is the next revolution, which, by the way, I think it is. But how can you actually use this within your business? And this is another part of the challenge. When there is too much possibility, it becomes very, very difficult to kind of focus. My son, who's at university studying cinematography, him and I often talk about creativity, and we talk about Star Wars, which, shame on him, he's never actually watched as a film student, but he's watched, we all know Star Wars. And back in the 70s, when they made Star Wars, they literally had cardboard, sellotape, and bits of plastic, and that film has endured and become, obviously, the hit that it is. And the reason is because if you want to do something with creative, you need to have boundaries. Rick Rubin, who is a record producer, said that the lack of boundaries is actually the enemy of creativity. And you'll see, we'll get on to kind of why this is important when it comes to AI and automation for your business. So what I'm hoping to do today is take you on a bit of a journey as to how you can use all this cool stuff in your MSP or other business. So the most important thing that you need to start for, and I'll go through some more detail, is why. Why are you doing it? Because we're all in the technology world here, we're all in IT, and when people do stuff just for the sake of doing it, it doesn't usually end up working out well. So once you've established what the why is, I'm then going to show you how you choose what you want to automate or use AI with. And then finally, a little short about how you do that. So once you've got a candidate for something that you want to automate in the business, how you're going to do that. So I'm also going to reassure you that it's not impossible and it's all doable, but you've got to start with why. So those of you who run your own business or run a team or run a department, you must have a strategy. I said earlier that I've made every mistake in the book in terms of an MSP, and part of that at the beginning of my MSP journey was because I didn't really have a strategy. I was good with IT, so I just kind of started an MSP or an IT company at the beginning, and I didn't have any kind of goal. So with all things in a business, you need to understand what your why is. Now, that could be usually from a company point of view, it could be from a department point of view or a team point of view. And it could be you want to get more profit, usually the common one. It could be that you want to have greater efficiency in your business. It could be that you just want to have happier staff so that they're not doing mundane, boring work. But you've got to have this why. Don't be like one of our clients we were out for drinks and having a good time, and he says, Jamie, I want to use AI in the sales and marketing. And I said, that's great, Jonathan. Why? And he says, because. And I'm saying, okay, that's nice, but that is not a reason to use it. You've got to have a reason. The other real benefit of having a why is that you will be able to measure it, whether it's a success. So in the same way that a business will have KPIs on profit or revenue and so forth, you won't be able to know whether your implementation of AI and automation is a success unless you've got something to measure it against. So the why is important. So now you've established what your why is, and you know why you're doing AI and automation and those kind of things. The question is, how do you choose where to even start? Like I said, you've got so many options now, it's overwhelming. So how do you prioritize? How do you say, right, we're going to start with this function or process, or we're going to start with this team? You've got to know how to prioritize and know where to start. And this was something that we've seen across all of our clients. They're overwhelmed. They don't know kind of where to start. So over the last few years of running the business, we've created a methodology. And that methodology is called the GAINS methodology. So, as I said, the challenges are there's too much information about automation and AI. It's constantly changing, and it's just accelerating in terms of how quickly stuff is changing. And the speed of it's getting faster, so it's virtually impossible to know where to start. So we came up with this methodology called the GAINS Advantage, and we think that it's simple to understand. It allows you to focus on your business and not the technology. And I should probably point out at this point, everyone who works in IT, all the things that you do in IT are just tools. And if ever you've had someone who say, I don't know, wants a CRM system or something like that, it is just a tool. And they should focus on what they're trying to do as a business rather than, I want to use this specific tool as they're trying to decide. So it allows you to focus on your business and not the technology. And the other really important thing in IT is, I hope we all know, is that you should start small and grow from there. Don't try and implement everything all at once. Again, another mistake we made as an MSP is trying to implement something really big for a client, and it all goes horribly wrong, and they don't like you anymore. And this leads to ultimately more successful implementations. So, where to begin? So as I mentioned, it's called the GAINS methodology. There is an S, but I haven't put it on here because the S stands for special sauce. So the special sauce is what makes us human. It's what allows us to do this. It allows us to go to the pub afterwards and have a drink. It allows us to sit here and talk to the guy that you know from last time and talk about business, talk about each other's families, shake hands. That is the special sauce of being human, and that you can never automate or use AI for. And that's really important to keep front of mind. So the other four that you've got are the GAIN, the G-A-I-N. And the first thing I should explain is why they're color-coded. So the G and the N are green. When it's green, it means that this part of a process or a process within a company are relatively straightforward to automate and to understand. So because they're relatively straightforward, it means you're probably going to be able to do it quicker, and it's probably going to be cheaper. The next level up is amber, which means it's going to be slightly more complicated. It's probably going to cost you a little bit more money. And then the final one in red, which is the I, which I'll go on to explain all of them, is it's going to be very complicated and ultimately very expensive. So just bear that in mind in terms of the colors. And just again, to put this into context, when you're looking at a process within your business, you're going to look at it through the lens of this GAINS methodology. So the first one is the G, gathering. So if I use a real-world example that I guess everyone here will know if you're MSPs or work with MSPs, let's look at ticketing and support tickets. So when support tickets come into your business, you're effectively gathering information. Now, it could be that they're coming in by email and someone takes them out of the email and puts them into your ticketing system. It could be that someone picks up the phone to take the details of a support call and types it into a system. Anything where part of the process is getting information. In a different example, in finance, for example, you might have invoices being sent to an inbox, and it's someone's job to sit there and download the PDF and put it into a folder or type that into a spreadsheet. That's a gathering action. So gathering data, inputting data, and collecting information. Pretty straightforward, pretty standard. And another way to look at this is you probably will have someone who's relatively low-skilled doing that in the business. So the next stage, or the next part of a process that's relatively straightforward, is the N. So that's notifying. So that will be things like generating reports, showing information to clients, and updating departments. So again, to go back to the ticketing example, It might be someone's job in the business or part of their job to produce a ticket report at the end of the week, number of tickets open, number of tickets closed. It doesn't matter what it is, but they're effectively generating some information to give to someone. It could be management information. It could be finance information, to use the invoice example. So they're straightforward, relatively straightforward. Next, you have the slightly more complicated actions that happen within a process. So these are the action processes. So this is processing data, moving data between systems, or cleaning data. So if we go back to the ticketing system, maybe the tickets come into a system, and then someone needs to kind of triage them. This type of ticket goes into first line. This type of ticket is a customer service ticket. This one needs to go to finance. So there needs to be some kind of action being taken on that data. And then finally, you've got I, which is interpreting data, information, making decisions, understanding information, intelligent thinking. So this is very much human intelligence. And so again, if we look at the ticketing system, you've gathered the tickets, someone's maybe triaged, or you've got a workflow built in that puts it into the right ticket queue. But then someone, usually a first-line engineer, needs to look and understand that ticket and respond to it in some way. So that's using, at the moment, human intelligence. And as you can see, this is a far more complex thing. You wouldn't get an office junior to reply to your first line, to your tickets. That's why you have more expensive resource doing these things. So the other way to look at this is that your cheaper resource in your business is going to work on the green stuff, or currently works on the green stuff. And then as you move up, it becomes more expensive resource. And part of the problem is that everyone wants to start on the red. They all want to say, AI, I want to use AI. And they try and do it, and it fails, or they can't work out how to get it to work properly because you're trying to do something too complex too quickly. You need to start with something small and then build upon that. So is that relatively clear, hopefully, in terms of how that works? So what I'm going to do is give you a few examples, a couple from MSPs that we've done, and one which is not an MSP, but will give you a nice kind of example. Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward. This is an email summary. So to give you some background about it, so it was actually a kind of a finance inbox within an MSP. It was someone's job to check that inbox regularly, look through the queries, and send it to the relevant department, whether it was finance, whether it was service. They got a lot of stress because they had other things they were meant to be doing, and this kind of got a bit low on the priority list. It was boring work, very boring work, and unproductive. And unfortunately, and this was nothing to do with the automation, I should point out, the company actually wanted to get rid of this person. It was a resource they didn't really need, and this was just a job that they were doing. So they came to us and suggested, is there a way that the two directors and the finance person in the business could still maintain knowing what's going on in the finance inbox without having to look at it themselves every 5 minutes to see what's going on? So we did this, and I'll go on to explain how this breaks down. But effectively, what we did and what happened was an automated bot was scheduled to go into a particular mailbox. It would then read the emails from a particular time period. It would digest those emails and understand them. It would then write a summary in about 2 sentences of the whole email. And then based on the priority that the directors wanted, it would then give them a daily digest email ordered and chunked into how they wanted to see it. So for example, if there was someone saying, you need to pay your bill, that was a high priority. If it was someone saying, look at our new, RMM platform, then it went straight to the bottom. So it saved time and resource. What the directors needed was pushed to them rather than them having to go in. And this one example, this could be customer service, this could be complaints, this could be inquiries, anything that comes in. So if we go back to the gains idea, let's look and break this down. So the gathering part. So this whole process can be broken down into these components. So the gathering is, it had to go into the inbox, collect the email, and then it had to extract the subject and the body of that email. The next thing it needed to do was actually digest and summarize that into that email into a maximum of 2 sentences. So in their example, this was going into an OpenAI backend, and it was using that and it had a specific prompt that was written that would do that. It then had to order and prioritize these emails into the order they wanted, and then finally it needed to put that into an email and then notify the directors. So it's gather, interpret, and notify. Okay, so another thing here is an MSP. This is the finance department and billing reconciliation. So I'm sure all of you here probably use some of the suppliers that are out here and have absolutely no problem reconciling all the suppliers with your invoices every month, and it's absolutely a dream. In this example, the MSP has multiple. In this case, I think they had about 9 or 10 different suppliers of recurring services. And they have all of the recurring invoices that in their case they were using Xero, the account software, to do the monthly billing. So in their instance, what was happening is a relatively high-paid member of staff was being paid to do the client reconciliation because the finance people didn't really understand. Oh, they've got this, that's 365, what does that mean? All this kind of stuff. So they didn't really understand. So the sales guy kind of got dragged into doing this. And it meant that really about 2 days a month, he would have to spend going through the list of every recurring invoice. He'd then have to download or print off or suck in the information from about 9 or 10 different suppliers, and then he'd have to reconcile the numbers. You know, does customer A have 10 mailboxes or 12 mailboxes, and do that. And it was laborious, it was horrible. Tedious, boring work. And it took them away from selling. That's what they were meant to be doing, generating new business. So they weren't happy, the business wasn't happy, it was just not a very nice situation. So after we did some automation work for them, basically we fully automated that process. And I'll go through in the next slide how that works. So there were no errors, invoice production happened automatically every month, and they had happy staff. So again, to go back to the kind of gains example. So in this example, the gathering information. So this had to extract the current billing information from Xero. So this is what your monthly invoice, all your monthly invoices are. It then went and extracted from 9 different suppliers the details of their monthly billing, or the invoices. It then went in to collate a master database, kind of spreadsheet, to kind of bring all this data into one place. This was an action, so this is more complex than just gathering data. This is actually manipulating data. It then went into Xero, got the data from Xero, puts this into the master spreadsheet, and then runs through, reconciles it all, and then goes back into Xero and updates the recurring bills. And then finally, it goes to the notification and notifies the team member that this has been done. But one caveat here is, has anyone heard of human in the loop? Okay. You have. Good man. Okay. When you work in automation and AI, or if you're thinking about having any kind of automation and AI, remember the term human in the loop. Again, everyone wants to live in this utopia where everything is totally automated and AI'd and it does everything. But that's how you end up pretty much in a Black Mirror disaster kind of episode, because it will just, you've got no one checking everything. So in this instance, what would happen before it actually sent out the invoices, it would generate a report that went to the same guy actually and just got him to run through. And this was a job that took him 20 minutes maximum rather than the 2 days it was taking him every month. So don't forget, human in the loop. Okay, so the last example is a completely different industry, but I guess it could be applied to the MSP industry, but it gives you an example of something that's more complex, and you can see how the gains methodology can be used on something that's more complex. Has everyone heard of Glassdoor, the website? No? Yes, some people have? Okay. So for those of you that haven't, Glassdoor is a website that is used by companies to basically have staff, current staff, and ex-staff review what it's like to work at that company. So in this instance, one of our clients is in the care industry. They're a very, very large care home in the UK, one of the biggest. In fact, they have 30,000 staff. They're taking on about 200 or 300 new staff every month. And for them, it's very important what staff think about working there, because they constantly have a need for a relatively high churn of staff because of the nature of the work. And they want to have people being happy with the company. So what was happening before? So basically they have a whole team, the recruitment team. Part of their job is to go onto Glassdoor, the website, look at the reviews that have been put there over the last week or so, and then reply to the reviews or take action on it if it's something that's a bit dodgy and someone's not very happy. And you basically had some really expensive resource, a lot of them, doing a job that they don't want to really do. A lot of them avoided doing this work because it was just a pain in the arse. And you had expensive resource doing it, and effectively it always went to the bottom of the priority pile. And because of that, it meant that they weren't responding to the reviews quickly enough, and because of that, the kind of internal Glassdoor that the employers see, their score, was going down. And what was a real motivation for this for them was that the company, the PLC, wanted that as a KPI. They wanted to have a much higher score on their Glassdoor scores. So after we implemented it, basically no one had to worry about this being done anymore. The KPIs have started to improve, and staff are only dealing with specialized cases or specialist cases that they need to. So as I said, this is more complex. This uses every element of gains. So again, the automation goes off to Glassdoor, the website, and gathers all the reviews from a specific time period. The next thing it does is digests and understands the comments. So a little bit like the email example, they've told us and explained to us pretty explicitly how they want it to review. You know, like a human, they want it to look at certain sentiments, certain words that are being used, how people are coming across in the thing, to rate it as to whether this is a positive review or a not positive review. And based on that, it is going to draft a response, in a comment that it's going to put back to respond to that Glassdoor post. Or, depending on the severity of it, it's going to redirect it to the relevant department that are going to deal with it. So we've got the interpretation part, deciding which action to take, digesting and understanding of the scores and sentiment and things like that, drafting a response and redirecting. And then when it comes to the notifying part, it's basically updating the comments on the website once they've been approved. And then the last thing, to increase your scores and KPIs, one of the things you're meant to do as a company is put regular updates about what your company's doing that makes you a great company. So it does that automatically. So this is a relatively complex automation that no one wanted to do as human beings, and this was now able to do that. Okay, so this is the kind of the what you do. So hopefully, using gains, you're able to look at processes in your business to understand what you might want to automate, how complex that's going to be. Is it going to be more about gathering and notifying, or is it information, informing, and interpreting, which is the AI side of things? So once you've done that, so you think, okay, we've looked at the business, we've looked at the team, we know what we want, we found this process in this particular department. The next question is how are you going to do that? As I said before, there's lots and lots of tools, and this is a very different type of skill set, if I'm being honest, that MSPs have. So just as a slight side kind of view on this, MSPs are very good at fixing problems, first line support, second line support, that type of thing. Doing automation and doing AI involves quite a different skill set. So my advice is either you need to start getting people trained up in your business on how to do this, or you need to employ people that can do this, or you need to work with an external company that can do this. And that actually goes back to the why, because then you've got something to measure that company against. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but effectively, the way to automate and use AI in the business is you start with the process analysis. So this is the gains bit. You think, okay, we've got a process. We know that this is great for automation. This is the one that we want to do. And we know that it's gathering something and then it's doing something with it. So the first thing that you typically do is something called a POD, which is a process overview document. I'm not going to show you these documents because they're pretty boring. But effectively, a POD is a high-level overview of a particular process, and it kind of, in verbose ways, in kind of a spoken way, it says, you know, Joe comes in the morning, they click on this, they do that, they export that. It's a pretty high-level document. You might also have within there a workflow, so a kind of Visio diagram that shows you, so you've got it kind of programmatically. From the POD, you then want to have a look at the solution design. So you're going to have a look and understand how you're going to do this. So has anyone here ever used or worked with a business analyst? Yeah? Okay, so business analysts are interesting. So when I was purely in the MSP world, I'd heard of business analysts. I had friends who were in enterprise, big corporates. They'd worked with business analysts. I'd heard it. I didn't really know what it meant. So go and find yourself a business analyst. They are your new best friend. A business analyst does this kind of POD and PDD, which I'll explain. They basically go in and are able to watch a process and totally break it down and analyze it for you. They're absolute wizards. Part of that process is you're going to look at that. So what will happen is you do the POD, or the process, you hand it to the person that owns that process. You say, is this correct? Have we got all this right? Is this correct? And more often than not, what will happen is when more than one or two pairs of eyes start to look at it, you'll start to go, well, this is interesting. Why do we do it this way? Why does Jane print off the spreadsheet and take it over to Dave, who does this? And then someone will go, well, I don't know, we've always done it that way. Which always reminds me of a funny story. So there's I'll just go on a bit of a side thing here. So basically, there's a family, and they're having pork for Christmas, right? They're having a pork joint leg for Christmas. This is nothing to do with IT. It just makes me laugh. And every Christmas they come here, and the young daughter's there, and she sees her mum, cuts off the end of it, puts it in the pan. And she's like, Mum, why do we cut off the end of the pork leg? And the mum says, well, we've always done that. That's what we do. Why not go and ask Grandma, right? The little girl runs off, sees the grandma. She says, Grandma, why do we cut the end of the pork off before we cook it? And the grandma says, well, you know what? That's just what we do in our family. That's how we do it. Go and ask your great-grandmother. So this little old lady sitting in the corner, waiting for the pork. And she runs up, she goes, Grandma, why do we cut the end of the pork off when we cook it? And the grandma says, well, when I first cooked it, it was too big for the pot, so I just cut the end off. And it's a silly story, but what it shows you, if all of us are in business, there's a lot of processes that are like that leg of pork, right? We're just doing them because. So the business analyst helps you to see that. So go find yourself a business analyst. Once you've got the POD, you then do what's called a PDD document. So this is a process design document. So this is similar to the POD, but it goes into much more detail. This is real granular stuff. This is going to every single step of the process. It's pictures of each screen, highlighting which buttons are clicked, and very importantly, capturing exceptions. So if someone is doing a process in your business and they need a particular piece of software to be on, or a computer to be switched on, the question is, what happens if that computer's off? What happens then? And you try and capture all of those exceptions. Now, more often than not, you won't be able to capture them all because people can't remember exactly what happens, but you've got to do that. Once you've got that, once you've got your PDD and you've designed this, said this is the solution, sign off. Again, anyone who's an MSP or in IT, the most important document. You get, let's call it the client, but basically whoever it is in the business that wants to automate this process, you get them to sign that document. Say, yes, this is what we have agreed. Because when you go to this stage, development, the developers, and this could be in whatever, Python, it could be Power Automate, it could be a product called UiPath, it could be Roost, is it Roost who are out there, something like that? It could be any of these things, right? When they develop it, they're going to develop it according to the documentation. And you can all guess what happens. You develop it to the documentation, and then the client or the process owner turns around and said, oh no, it doesn't do that. Why is it doing that? So that's why sign-off is so important. And then finally, you want to take that into a test environment. Never, ever, ever put it straight into live. You want to get users to accept that this is testing, so UAT testing. You want it to be tested on some dummy data. You want to make sure it's worked out, get sign-off again, say, yes, this is doing exactly as we expect it to do. And then finally, you implement it into live. And that's how you automate and use AI. And to go right back to the gains methodology, if you're starting with those G's and those N-type parts of the process, they're less likely to cause some damage. You're not updating banks, you're not logging into banks or paying people or things like that. So you start with those, what we call low-hanging fruit, and then you build upon them in complexity. So in terms of platforms, as I said, there's plenty of platforms. I'm not here to kind of sell what we do. We use Microsoft Power Platform. That's got Power Automate, which is a fantastic product. You've got UiPath. So again, I don't know if has anyone heard of RPA here, or robotic process automation? Yeah, hardly anyone puts their hands up. So if you want to have some fun, go and Google RPA. It has the worst PR of any software ever. So when big banks like HSBC or Santander, when they're laying off tens of thousands of staff, they're using robotic process automation to replace the jobs that humans are doing. It basically does what someone does sat at a computer. So the big players in that market are UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. But just to get in through the front door, you're looking at a few $100,000 just to start. That's why Microsoft is probably a better place to start, or some of these other products that are out there as well. In terms of the AI stuff, we work with OpenAI. So if anyone has, most people have used ChatGPT, and the voice stuff. That's one side of what OpenAI does. With Microsoft Azure, you get access to all of the extra functionality that OpenAI has, and it literally will blow your mind. You're talking about things like the document recognition, voice recognition, image recognition, everything you can imagine, and it's all done via API, and it's very, and I have to say, pretty cheap as well in terms of the tokens and things like that. So I'm not going to tell you one is better than the other, but you've got Meta, you've got Gemini. Go and do your research and have a look. So what I'm going to end with is a little video. So everything that you're going to see is being done by a bot or by an automation. There's a little example of something kind of showing a human against an automation. But enjoy this and see. Hopefully you'll kind of, it will all make sense. This one is processing invoices, logging into an enterprise ERP system, and putting the data from those invoices from the spreadsheet into the system. So in this example, this is report generation. Very, very expensive resource was having to generate reports weekly for this company. Yeah, it saved them a lot of money. Sometimes it looks like this, sometimes you can't see it because it's API. So this is human versus automation. So in this example, she's trying to type 20 rows into a little application, and the bot on the left is doing exactly the same process. And you can kind of see the difference. I mean, she's not had a cup of tea yet, to be honest. Maybe, or a coffee, I should say. So just on that note, yeah, you can see it takes a lot of time. So I'm sure no one in their office has people that are doing this kind of stuff, typing stuff into spreadsheets, processing data, things like that. Typically, an automation will take about 1/20th of the time that a human takes to do something. So that's something to bear in mind. So hopefully that made sense with the gains methodology. Never forget about the special sauce, what makes us human. That's very important. And start looking at your business through those lenses, because it will help you understand where there's opportunity to automate, use AI, and definitely don't start with the complex AI, just because. Start with something practical, have a reason to do it, something measurable, and hopefully you'll be automating and using AI. Thank you very much.
So, Jamie, did you want to take some questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to take questions. Yeah.
So we're talking about automation, probably one of the most important topics of the day for MSPs. Does anybody have a question they want to ask Jamie? Raise your hand.
They're automating already.
They're all being controlled by their own AI.
That's it. Yeah.
It's got the answers already. Here we go.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
Quick question regarding when would you recommend to start automating, build your processes with AI yourself, and when would you buy on the off-the-shelf solution for the problems of the MSP?
So a lot of that comes down to the why you're doing it. So you've got to be able to measure whether something's been a success or not, and part of that is measuring the return on investment. Now, if you use a company like us, for example, it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive than having something that's off the shelf. That's typical. So as long as the off-the-shelf product does everything that you want it to do without too much effort, then I'd say probably do that because it's been built around what you want it to do. My only caveat to that is, having been an MSP for 25 years, I've seen a lot of money spent on CRM systems which no one uses. So make of that as you will, but there's a lot of things that proclaim to do everything you want, and then you end up using just 10% of the functionality. And actually, another thing to say is that there's a lot of automation being built into software at the moment. And there's a lot of, I hope most people are aware of what an API is, the ability to communicate between systems. The problem is that a lot of those systems don't do everything that you want it to do. And often the API will not allow you to get or put everything that you want. So automation can be a bit of a kind of support for those types of things. Okay.
Cool. Another question.
I've blown their minds. They don't know what to
You did. You know, actually, I have a question because you kind of reflects on what you just said as well. You know, kind of an unwritten rule when I've been managing IT projects is that I tell them, you know, you want to have everything. If I ask you what you want, you're going to say everything, right? That's what the thing is. But should people automate to follow like an 80-20 rule that they say that, hey, you know, you want to put forth and get 80% of what you want, or is there some sort of a rule for that?
Yeah, so not quite the 80-20 rule, but really it's done as a kind of a return on investment. So I'll give you one example. So one of our clients, their care home as an example, they had a team of 8 people. I don't know the exact salaries, but let's say they're being paid £30,000 per person. So 8 people, that's a lot of people. And they were doing a very, very manual process in this particular example. Now, the cost to them was probably about, without giving too much away, between 10 to 20% of what their annual cost was to do this automation. So for them, it made total sense to do it because they could relocate these other people to other jobs, more productive jobs, more profitable jobs. And so that's really the measure. But it comes back down to the why. Another client, they didn't want their sales staff spending all their time doing data entry and stuff like that. And because of that, they wanted happier staff. So it wasn't really a kind of a tangible money thing. It was more like they just wanted happier staff because happier staff would allow them to sell more and so on and so forth. So it starts with the why. It starts with why you want to do it and what's your measurable.
I think that makes sense. I'm just going to play on that for a second because if you don't know it or not, ROI can be lower staff churn. So even if you just save one employee being frustrated and leaving for another job, you do that once a year, you've probably paid for a good chunk of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool, good. I see you, sir. I'm going to start right here.
Thanks,
Hello.
Jamie. That was great.
You're welcome.
Very pragmatic. I have one question with regards to privacy.
Yep.
Because a lot of customers will have a privacy concern, and when you're exchanging information with OpenAI or things like this, how do you deal with privacy to make sure that nothing is breached?
Okay, so there's a number of different things going on there. So when an automation runs, the types of automation that we would do for people is those automations run within the client system, first of all. So no data is coming back to our systems or anything like that. So everything stays within their environment. Secondly, because these automations are logging into their applications, our recommendation, not even recommendation, we insist that they set up specific users, bot users, so that we can audit what the bot is doing. You don't just put it as Jane's login, you'll have it as a separate login. Third thing is things like passwords. You can imagine the bots are logging into, in some cases, banking systems, very, very HR systems, things like that. So we use a particular kind of key vault thing. The developers can't even see the passwords. No one can see the passwords except the kind of head of automation when he puts them in. So nothing there is happening. Now, when it comes to OpenAI, in that example, so basically, if you're using the free version of OpenAI, then you're pretty much saying, you can use my information to train. If you use the paid for or the enterprise versions of OpenAI, you're ring fencing it to within your organization. So they and you are agreeing that your information is never going to be used for training purposes or to be used by them. Just as a slight caveat, and I always get told off for this because I do. So most people have heard of Gemini and Meta, right? And Microsoft, obviously, and OpenAI. And OpenAI is pretty much owned by Microsoft, let's be honest. Okay, so always ask yourself, why do they want my data? Microsoft, whether you like them or loathe them, they are a productivity company. You pay for them to give you a productivity suite. And therefore, in my opinion, it's a little more trustworthy, because if you look at Google or Meta, often it's free, and it's not free. It's not really free. They want your information for all their other things like that. So I would always say, from a business point of view, stick to a company where you're paying for that. You know, they're not expecting to get something for nothing. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Good.
Sir.
Okay, my question is related to accuracy. What's your experience with that? Because I've had some disastrous experiences with accuracy where it wasn't.
Can you give an example, say, in terms of
yes, basically one example was related to mathematical calculations. They were just completely wrong.
Using AI? Or, yeah. So the AI part of it, you've got to choose carefully what you're using that part for. So it's very good at sentiment analysis, it's very good at understanding and comparing things, stuff like that. But things like formulas and mathematics, I'd probably stick to hard-coded ways of doing that. So we would do that within the automation tool. We wouldn't necessarily put that calculation into the AI part of it. What's going into the AI? How do we trust what's going? Well, I would say it's 100% accurate because we're taking it directly from the system, which is then inputting it into the AI. As long as the data, I won't swear, but not good stuff in generates not good stuff out.
We have one more question right here.
Sorry.
2 for the price of 1.
Hello? Yeah, okay. The microphone's on. Yeah, just on the privacy note, I wanted to ask, what is your opinion about small language models, running your own language model, maybe even
on what, sorry? On
small language models?
Yeah.
Instead of a large language model like OpenAI would be, right? You can also train your own language model on your own data. Even.
Yep. And are you talking about language models that you would host yourself rather than
yeah, exactly. If you have a very critical data that need to be processed, that would be a viable option, probably, you know?
Yeah. So we tend to use the large language models, and we used a hosted thing. Actually, I was having this conversation the first night, actually, with someone. I don't know if they're here, but what they do is they install their own NVIDIA servers, and they keep everything self-contained. And I guess it's the same as you would do in all areas of IT, and particularly with MSPs working with clients. Some clients will always want to keep their data, totally sensitive data, in-house. But the caveat of that is you're having to manage that server, manage that model, and maintain it, whereas with hosted models, you know, the larger companies are doing that, and the costs are pretty significant for that. Yeah, you do. Yeah, so we've done something recently with. So I'm learning about this as much as everyone else. So you've got this thing called multi-shot AI. Have you come across multi-shot? Okay, multi-shot is pretty cool. So what happens is, OpenAI, for example, or Microsoft, it doesn't matter, have built-in, pre-built models that will read invoices. So if you've got something that's reading invoices, it will look at the PDF and it will take the data from it. But we found we weren't getting a particularly high success rate, maybe 35–40% in accuracy, because those invoices were from factories, there was handwriting, and it was a bit gnarly. So what we did is we trained the 4.0 model with OpenAI to basically check the results of the first pass. Once we get that out, we then pass it through again and get it to check again, and now we're getting 98–99% accuracy on those invoices. So, and we were using 4.0, which was the kind of the mini one, the small model. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
You know what? We are running low on time, but it was great. Thank you very much, Jamie. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Cheers.
you. And they can follow up with you. Your contact. You know,
yeah, the details are up there. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn.
Or just mug him as he's going outside.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Thank you very much, Jamie.